1997. DreamWorks Interactive, in collaboration with a fresh new development team called the Neverhood, releases a quirky point-and-click adventure game called The Neverhood. Spearheaded by the insanely creative father of Earthworm Jim, Doug TenNapel, the game instantly became my favorite of all time and changed my perception of games forever. With beautifully surreal and twisted claymation environments and characters, quirky slapsticky sense of humor, bizarre and fascinating plot, brain-twisting puzzles, and one of, if not the most unique and hilarious soundtrack in all of video game history by Terry Taylor, The Neverhood boasted a uniquely atmospheric experience that was lightning in a bottle. Sadly, poor sales doomed the game to a cult status and would all but guarantee that this will be the first and last game of its kind. But then, almost 2 decades later, in 2013, from out of nowhere, TenNapel, Taylor, and the gang reunited as the newly formed Pencil Test Studios, and launched a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign for a brand new spiritual successor to their earlier work entitled Armikrog. And I could not have been more excited. One successful campaign, 2 years of rigorous development, and numerous bug-fixing delays later, the game is finally available for purchase on Steam and GOG.com. So was it worth the wait? Does this game recapture the same once-in-a-lifetime feeling as the Neverhood did all these years ago? Well, yes and no. Let's start at the beginning. The story of Armikrog goes that the inhabitants of planet Ixen are facing extinction as their primary source of energy, plutonium, is running out. 3 astronaut brothers are sent out to planet Spyro 5 to find more, but 2 of them disappear without a trace and are presumed dead, leaving only the youngest and most inexperienced one, Amayirot, and his dog-like sidekick Beak. Crashing on Spyro 5's surface, the duo must now find their way through the long-abandoned ruins of the fortress Armikrog, uncover the mysteries of the planet's dead civilization, and find a way back home. Right off the bat, you'll notice an important difference with this game and the Neverhood. Unlike the latter game's protagonist, Clayman, Amayirot and Beak actually have voices, with none other than Mike Nelson of Mystery Science Theater 3000 and RiffTrax fame as the voice of Amayirot, and cartoon voiceover talent extraordinaire Rob Paulson as Beak.
I don't think our part insurance is gonna cover this. Our deductible is nuts too.
Beak. Look at that. What do you make of this guy?
Ooh, an omelet.
While their performances are more than adequate and their dialogues are generally pretty funny, they unfortunately don't have a lot to say overall, which is a bit of a problem, but I'll get more into that later. Gameplay-wise, the overall setup shouldn't be surprising in the slightest to anyone who's played the Neverhood. Point and click, guide Tommy and Beaky through Armikrog, solve whatever puzzles and conundrums you find along the way, collect all the items you can carry in Tommy's stomach and use them wherever appropriate, and slowly piece together what happened that left the place as dead as it is, so that you can bring the story to some kind of satisfying conclusion. And as before, the art design on this game is nothing short of breathtakingly beautiful. The environments, characters, creatures, everything is painstakingly animated in traditional claymation and stop motion, and it looks better than ever in crisp HD. With its unusual architecture, bizarre machines, and an overall organic look and feel, the game's world radiates the same fantastical and surreal atmosphere as its predecessor, and it is every bit just as marvelous to behold. And adding to that is another absolutely fantastic soundtrack by the one and only Terry Scott freaking Taylor, which in itself was my biggest reason for wanting this game made in the first place, and why I pledged $45 for the soundtrack edition of the game. The music is awe-inspiring, wacky, and catchy as all hell, full of Taylor's trademark eccentric sound and damn solid instrumentation. I was hooked right off the bat just listening to the game's rocking intro theme. When it comes to the puzzles, Armikrog doesn't bring a whole lot new to the table, but it is generally solid enough. You got your standard logic puzzles like sliding tiles, musical puzzles, color matching and the like, and some minor inventory puzzles which are pretty simple since, like Clayman, Amayirot will automatically pull out the right object for the job if he happens to be carrying it. Also making a return from the Neverhood are these cart sections, but they're generally just a way to quickly travel from one section of the world to another, sadly without the added benefit of having the Neverhood's Southern Front Porch Whistler playing in the background. It's absolutely crucial though that you take lots of notes, as pretty much everywhere you will find cryptic clues to puzzles whose importance may not be immediately apparent, but you will no doubt find them useful somewhere down the line. So always keep pen and paper handy, or just do what I did and take lots of screenshots. New to this game is the fact that you have a sidekick with you in the form of Beak. You can take control of him with a simple mouse click and promptly get him to hold down big buttons like these while you have Amayirot go off elsewhere, which adds kind of a Goblins dynamic to the game. Beaky also has access to places that Tommyknot can't enter, either through passages like these, or by flying after Tommy feeds him one of these dragonfly things. Though when Beak goes off on his own, the game gets really trippy as you see things through his eyes, or lack thereof. But an entertainingly grotesque touch is that he'll swallow any items you find in these bits, and then later horks them back up again for Tommyknot to pick up. Might want to wash your hands after that, pal. Unfortunately, there are some problems that I have to address. Because everything around you is so weird and cryptic, it can be hard to figure out what certain things are or what they're for. But despite actually having voices, Tommyknot and Beak are frustratingly unhelpful in giving feedback when you click on something that you think might be important. And just as with the Neverhood, any items you collect are usually vague and nondescript, and you have no way of seeing what Tommyknot is currently carrying until he actually uses an item in response to clicking on something in the environment. So you just have to hope that you have what you need to proceed in any given situation. This is mitigated somewhat by the fact that most of the items you find are the same switch handles which you attach to sockets, or odd thingamabobs which usually go in generators you power up in order to open up new sections. Though adding to the frustration is that each specific switch handle corresponds to its own socket, and so they're not interchangeable, thus figuring out which handle goes where can be rather annoyingly arbitrary. It can also be hard to even see items lying around sometimes, especially in Beak sections where everything becomes exceptionally hard to look at, although it does slightly help that obtainable items are indicated by swirling spirals in these parts. But absolutely unforgivable is that a lot of times the game completely fails to register that you have clicked on something you can interact with, which makes things even more needlessly frustrating. Especially these damn switches that Beaky needs to sit down on won't respond 9 times out of 10. Plus, some of the puzzle design is just plain lazy. Especially these tiled rotating and sliding puzzles are repeated ad nauseum, along with the musical mobile puzzle that occurs at certain points. And while they do ramp up in difficulty as the game goes on, it doesn't change the fact that you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And then there's puzzles that rely on going back and forth between screens a lot, just so you can see if what you did elsewhere had the desired result. But despite all of my complaints, I did enjoy the puzzles overall, and though I did get frustrated and stuck in a few places, I found taking short breaks and coming back later helped me to eventually figure things out when I realized I'd overlooked something, and so made steady progress bit by bit. Plus, you can always visit one of these statues for hints on how to proceed. In any case, the game certainly doesn't dumb things down or hold your hand in any way, and in this day and age of gaming, I can certainly appreciate that. But here's a free tip nonetheless. Beak can interact with these tentacle monsters when you're controlling him. You'll thank me later. Took me way too long to figure that out. In addition to the obvious parallels to the Neverhood, the plot and gameplay of Armikrog actually remind me a lot of LucasArts' The Dig in places. Trapped in mysterious alien ruins full of bizarre machinery and puzzles, searching for a way home, ghosts that give you hints and advice, cryptic messages left by the aliens detailing the downfall of their civilization. There's plenty to like here. The plot, what little of it there actually is pretty fascinating overall as you slowly piece it together, and there's even a throwback to the infamous Hall of Records, where the story of one of the planet's inhabitants is carved into this wall, which fortunately is totally optional for you to read, but provides some interesting background to the game's setting. But here's sadly where I get to address the biggest damn pink-spotted elephant with fairy wings in the auditorium. Despite the numerous delays, this game was horrifically buggy at launch. Right off the bat, if your Windows installation wasn't set to the proper region, all of the game's text would appear invisible. Then there's things like the slider puzzle randomly breaking if I messed around with it for long enough, and I've heard numerous people complain about random animation errors, clipping errors, crashes, and I've also seen minor glitches like voices not playing, subtitles not displaying or not matching what was being said, or 2 different songs playing over each other. And having the game be released in such an unfinished state is just something that I cannot overlook, no matter the creator's intent, because this kind of thing still happens all the damn time and needs to stop already! Although I will give credit to the developers for actually replying to me on Twitter regarding these issues, and even sending me a personalized email asking me to describe the problems I was having so they could get to work on fixing them. And they have since released a patch that at the very least fixes the region issue, but this still should not have happened in the first place, and it all but killed my initial enthusiasm when I started playing. Despite the bugs and all that, I did manage to finish the game with relative ease, which brings me to my final point. This game is disappointingly short. Keeping into consideration how long it took me to figure out certain puzzles, I managed to beat this game in under 6 hours total. Now, the Neverhood wasn't the longest game to begin with, but it still had a lot of content that I feel this game is missing, especially considering the repeated puzzles and the overall less concise story. Plus, because of the short length, Tommyknot and Beak never really endeared themselves to me quite like Clayman did. Which is ironic considering they have a hell of a lot more dialogue. Nevertheless, I did find the experience satisfying overall. Now, call me either an apologist, biased, or looking out through rose-tinted nostalgia glasses. I will fully admit to all of these, but in the end, we got a brand new claymation point-and-click adventure game from Doug TenNapel in 2015. And that is exactly what I signed up for. No, Armikrog does not live up to the hype, nor does it surpass the Neverhood in any way, shape, or form, aside from the obvious technical aspects, but for what it is, I still had a lot of fun with it. And if nothing else, gave me some small semblance of that same feeling of awe and wonder as its legendary predecessor. Like I was back in 1997 playing it again for the first time ever. And that in itself is worth something. But it saddens me that despite the fact that I personally enjoyed Armikrog, I cannot in good conscience recommend anyone else to check it out just yet, given the numerous bugs. So at least wait a little while until the developers have ironed those out. And then wait a little longer until it goes on sale, because I feel the current asking price is a bit steep for a game this short. Though feel free to spend a bit extra for the soundtrack, because that is totally worth it. But in today's gaming market, Armikrog is still one of a kind and deserves to be enjoyed no matter what. Just know what you're getting yourself into. Hello everyone, and thanks so much for watching this review that was 20 years in the making. If you want to stay up to date on my new videos, hit the subscribe button. Or, if you want to support my channel with a few bucks every month for every full video I make, go to my Patreon page and become my patron. If you haven't yet, or if you're just feeling nostalgic, you can also check out my original review of the Neverhood I made several years ago. And my buddy Blonde Eye Gamer has you covered if you want to know more about the sequel, Skull Monkeys. Again, thanks for watching, and see you all next time.